Nemesis. Hidden, it slept. Disturbed, it awoke. And once awoken, it fed. Ride.
In the early 90s, Alton Towers added a shuttle loop coaster called Thunderlooper. The coaster was certainly a thrilling addition for its time. However, it wouldn't be around long. Unfortunately, Thunderlooper was, by its name, loud. Like, really loud. And Alton's nearby residents were not happy with the constant rumble the coaster created. The rumble was so loud, in fact, that it caused nearby cows to end up calving at the wrong time of year. To add, the coaster was also tall and could be seen by the nearby residents. Yes, if you know anything about Alton Towers or have played Rollercoaster Tycoon, this is the birth of the famous height restriction imposed on the park, where Alton is not allowed to build anything above the tree line, a challenging limitation to say the least. And even though popular, Thunderlooper would need to be removed because of this. That and it has some major maintenance issues, so that also didn't help. The coaster would only last a mere 6 seasons at Alton. However, a new coaster was being developed in the nearby unused land next to Thunderlooper. The park wanted a coaster that was big, different, and exciting, yet had to be in compliance with this new height restriction and work around some new, creative challenges to get off the ground.
Twisting and turning and snaking through space, the pipeline coaster will ride neither on top of nor below the tracks, but between them. And the cars will not just loop, but roll like stunt planes.
A coaster that can go down the track and rotate about this axis at the same time that it's doing all the other things. So maybe you can go into a loop. Instead of going up over the top, you get on top and you just turn over and end up right side up all of a sudden.
The first concept for the area would come in the form of an aerodynamics coaster. Aero was working on a new concept called the pipeline coaster. The gimmick of the model is that the trains ride between the tracks as opposed to a traditional coaster where they ride above them. It sounds cool, in theory. The coaster would have been themed to a secret military weapon and most likely called Secret Weapon. The Secret Weapon moniker would be used even to this day as a placeholder for major projects at Alton Towers. For instance, nearby Smiler was originally referred to as Secret Weapon 7, and Wicker Man is Secret Weapon 8. Secret Weapon 1 and the revised plan for the same model, Secret Weapon 2, was to be the world's first pipeline coaster, but these plans would never in fact see the light of day. Why? Well, after writing a prototype in Utah, John Worley, the iconic coaster designer behind many of the UK's most legendary coasters, or as he's referred to in the UK, Coaster Daddy, wrote the prototype and described it as, and I'm summarizing here, shite. But in all seriousness, he described the prototype as very slow and rather boring, looking cumbersome, and was very energy inefficient. Not to mention the height restriction placed on the park would simply not allow for them to create an even remotely compelling layout for this coaster. The concept, although interesting, was limited for what Alton Towers needed it to do. So, as quickly as it came, Pipeline the military coaster was officially dead. And with that, the park was still hunting for that perfect new concept that would comply with the newly imposed creative challenges presented to the park. And the right model for the park would in fact fly in at just the right moment.
Six Flags, answer the call. To Batman, the ride. Imagine the air below, the sky above. You are Batman when you fly the world's only suspended outside looping nothing like it on Earth experience. Not even at Disney. Come, answer the call to Batman, the ride. Only at Six Flags Great America.
A relatively up-and-coming coaster manufacturer, B&M, had developed a revolutionary new coaster design known as the inverted coaster. This coaster type is like a regular coaster, only inverted. I'm sure you're probably well aware of what an inverted coaster is. I'm just being silly. Because, well, the model absolutely exploded in the industry, and there are inverts still being added to this day. You've probably been on several, or at least one. But even though they are seemingly ubiquitous now, they really were a major leap forward in coaster technology at the time. Nobody had seen anything like it. And it was miles ahead of what the aforementioned Aero was doing. Sure, Aero had suspended coasters, but the B&M invert was simply a major leap forward on the concept. And after riding the first ever installation at Six Flags Great America, the invert would be chosen as the quote-unquote secret weapon for Alton Towers' new project. While John Wardley and Nick Varney, the marketing director of Alton Towers at the time, were coming up with the epic name Nemesis, the layout for the coaster was being designed by legendary Werner Stengel. Stengel began his career in collaboration with Anton Schwarzkopf. However, he would go on to design a coaster that I'm sure you've ridden before. Maverick, Millennium Force, Top Thrill Dragster, for instance, were all worked on by Stengel's company, Stengel Engineering. However, unlike Millie and Dragster, Alton had a big problem on its hands. That height restriction. Honestly, can you imagine if Cedar Point had a height restriction? Like, oof. Yet, where restriction and limitation come in, creativity often comes out. Much of Nemesis would be built below grade, a clever design strategy that also plays into its larger theme that John and Nick came up with, a dig site holding back an interdimensional buried creature. But also, the layout capitalizes on this unique feature, intentionally placing elements that gradually build on themselves to deliver a surprising and forceful layout that gives other taller and faster inverts a run for their money.
Now, for the technically minded, it is a multi-inversion suspended roller coaster. But for the rest of you, it's just designed to scare you. Now, down there is the station, which is the start of the ride. When we first rode the prototype, there was no doubt it is the most sensational physical experience of any amusement ride in the world. Your feet are dangling in space. So when you turn upside down, it really is just you and the sky. There's no vehicle around you, and it is the nearest thing to flying that you can get. Right, the station, it might just look like a load of concrete and steel at the moment, but in a few months' time, this is going to look like a horrible, great, slimy alien monster. Now, the ride starts there and goes up in that direction, right up to the treetops, turns, comes down here, does an upside-down corkscrew under the monorail there, back down through that hole, and up over the top of the station where it does a zero-G roll and turns upside down. Back down there, and then climbs up to the top of those trees where it does a stall turn. Drops back down again to the bottom of this hole, does a vertical loop through a tunnel, out of the tunnel there, does another corkscrew over there, into another underground tunnel under the station, another stall turn, and back into the station. Wow!
Nemesis begins with a climb of only 43 feet. I mean, come on, there are kiddie coasters that are taller. This functions as kind of an interesting fake-out. After clicking off the lift hill, Nemesis gains speed and increases forces incrementally, and by the end you are absolutely flying, not to mention pulling some serious positive Gs that are a staple of 90s B&Ms. After the first hill, the train makes a small dip and a 180-degree turn to the left, followed by a small drop into a corkscrew. The train then navigates a right-handed 270-degree downward helix. That is quite intense, pulling some heavy positives, before soaring up into a weightless zero-G roll that juxtaposes nicely with the intense helix you just whipped through. Next, the coaster dives down and sets up for a vertical loop that feels particularly unique due to its placement mostly underground. The coaster's finale involves a dive underground and a super tight corkscrew that whips you so much harder than the first, and really comes out of nowhere if you're not paying attention. And with that, you head back up into the brake run. A short layout by today's standards, but still a solid layout, and one that doesn't overstay its welcome. As well, there is absolutely no filler with the Nemesis layout. And likewise, it's super unconventional, because for one, you don't really follow the cookie-cutter layout found on a lot of inverts around the world, and two, Nemesis is mostly underground and hidden in trenches, so it can feel very out of control. This, in my opinion, greatly adds to the coaster's character and is more of a feature than a curse. The genius of Nemesis is that it somehow packs a forceful, intense, and surprising layout while never exceeding the height of the nearby trees. You feel like you're absolutely trapped below grade while riding Nemesis, and you're not really sure where it will go next. Each turn and inversion really does come out of nowhere if you're unfamiliar with the layout, and somehow each element seems to complement the last through an intentional palette of positive and negative Gs. The closest comparison we have in the States is perhaps the finale on Montu, where it whips through a similar below-grade corkscrew. But as much as I love Montu, I have to give creative props to Nemesis. Nemesis really takes this idea and runs with it, absolutely utilizing every inch of its uniquely curated terrain to its advantage. Not only that, but its trenches and subterranean design is a part of its theme, essentially an excavation site in which a mysterious alien creature from another dimension was discovered. It's a fun backstory with some fun lore that just stands to elevate the experience even more. Even still, Nemesis could be themed to something generic and it would still slap. It really never emerges higher than some family coasters designed intentionally to be tame in nature. And I think that's why Nemesis really remains iconic to this day. It wasn't created to break a record or one-up its competition. No, it was created to be, well, a good ride. A creative layout came before marketable records. An engaging backstory was created to enhance the experience and explain why the coaster was built how it was. And the limitations placed on Alton Towers as a park led to the melding of creative solutions and a unique layout to create a masterpiece of coaster design. And that's really the story of Nemesis. Creativity will always be timeless. Coasters don't have to break records to be great. In fact, some of the record breakers are so focused on those records that a good layout often goes by the wayside. I don't want to point anyone out in particular, I'm just saying. And that's why Nemesis remains relevant to Alton Towers in the coaster industry as a whole. There is only one Nemesis, and there will ever only be one. Well, there is that other one at Thorpe Park, but you know what I'm saying. There's only like one true Nemesis. Wow, I've really diffused the dramatic ending here. Anyway, Nemesis is dope, and with its retrack, it's clear that Alton agrees. And I'm looking forward to the legend thrilling guests for many more decades to come. Have you ridden Nemesis? Is it one of your favorites? Give a shout out to the icon down below. And as always, remember rule number 5, relax and enjoy the ride. Thanks for watching.